Oftentimes when people are doing gun modifications and working on gunsmithing, one of the issues that they encounter is the sight. Removing of the sight, punching it out, how you deal with it. So there's actually a few ways to go about it. This is actually the cheapest, simplest one. Each one of these is actually a different price tier. So you got the cheapest, also cheapest, middle, more expensive, most expensive. The fundamental thing you're going to find is that a lot of these sights, rear sights, front sights, it all depends on how you have them. This is from a Glock 19 slide Gen 5. They have to be brought out from the front, but there are slides that have a front dovetail that needs to be pushed out. But in almost all cases, to get it out, you go right to left, and to put it back in, you go left to right. For CZ, for example, it actually doesn't really matter which way because it is, if you measure it, it is identical on this side and on this side. The pressure is in the middle and it's pushing up. So it's irrelevant which side you go from. I've tended to go right to left because that's just how 1911s are in most firearms. A little tiny bit of a caveat, as we go through the cheapest option over here, except for this little tiny nylon pusher, which is, I don't know, 30, 40 cents, $1. You're actually going to need all of this stuff for any kind of gun work you do, any kind of modifications. These are really basics that you should have. You really should have a hammer. You can get these for anywhere from $5 to $20, $30. Armor's hammer, for all of them, you're going to need painter's tape to be able to cover up the slides, because all of these solutions will mark up your slide and damage your slide. So you're going to want to use this to cover up the slide to protect it, as well as the sights, because you probably don't want to scratch them. You're always going to need a armor's block, gun block. This is useful for just anything in a pinch. You could use this, the tape, but it's just a little easier. These tend to be magnetized, works a little easier. You're going to want one of these measuring calipers. You could use a ruler in a pinch, but these are way more precise. All in all, this, I don't know, while this might all cost you about $100, this is really, if you're doing any kind of gun work, you already have all of this. This is the only thing that's like $1. So let's just say $1. This $1. This runs $25. So this is a universal sight pusher. They work for all guns. We'll talk about this in a minute. This one is also a universal sight pusher by VISM. It's an American company that I believe they manufacture out of China, but their design and parts and source and patents are all American. I think they're based out of California. This one runs for this specific one is $80. You're going to find one on Amazon that's also $50. The main difference between the $50 one and the $80 one is, you see how thick this is? The $50 one is much, much smaller. This metal brace for pushing the sight is much thinner. So if you have a really stubborn steel sight, it could snap. So I honestly would just recommend you get the $80 one. This one is by Wiregear, and this one you'll find for about $90. It's heavy steel. It has measurements right here, and it also has on the inside, you can see these little tiny ridges, which will show you where you put your slide, because as you brace it, you want to have the same angle coming in and out. And then this one, at the time of this recording, well, I bought it for $120 2 days ago. When I looked now, it was like $150, $160. Wheeler is American made, American manufactured, American designed. These two are actually identical. This one is the American version, the original American version. And this one is basically the Chinese knockoff. So that's pretty much the main difference. There's a little tiny differences as you go through these two, but you'll find that they are pretty much identical. This one's a lot nicer, a lot more expensive, American company, and this one is a Chinese knockoff. So works just fine, but it is a Chinese knockoff, and we'll go into it in a second. So let's get these out of the way. If you're going to be just using a hammer and the nylon punch, you essentially want to brace the firearm, hold it, put the nylon punch, and you start banging on. I'm not going to bang on it because I have a sight already there, but you start banging on it. You push out the sight, and then you put the other one in. You measure, you bang, you measure, you bang. I can tell you right now, this, for some guns, it's easy. For some firearms, it's easy. For Glocks, it's not too bad. This is going to be a pain in the butt for a lot of different firearms. This is going to be really, really difficult. It's hard to brace. You could put it in a vise, you could, but in general, this is just, it depends on the firearm. This, you're not going to damage your gun. By the way, again, use a nylon punch. Don't use brass might work, but it can still scuff things. Definitely do not use steel punches. They will really mar up your gun. Nylon works great. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, if you're doing this once in a while, once every few years, you just have one or two guns you're going to do this to, this is a viable option. It's a cheap option. It works just fine. By the way, you're probably going to have to use this to some degree to iron out fine details of where you want the sight to be. All these other tools work, but it can be a pain to tweak just little fine tidbits. So you're probably going to end up having one of these anyway. Going on to the next piece. Not going to be removing the slides on camera. I just want to show you how they work, and I don't want to scratch up the slide. Okay. So, and you should put a little bit on here, but it's going to be hard for you to see. Since I'm not going to be doing that, it's okay. So now this one. This is the $25 one. You can get these for anywhere from 20 to 30 bucks. The pros and cons of this: it's 20 bucks, 30 bucks, really cheap. When I'm spinning it, it's pushing out it's moving this. That's all there is to it. So you unscrew it. This falls right out. This is the con right there. So this, you have to put your slide in and balance it and make sure that it is done correctly. You can lower this a little bit on this side, and you're going to basically fiddle with this. You're just, let me move this out of the way. You're going to be fiddling with this for, honestly, almost as much time as it would take you to just hammer it out with this. But you're going to be fiddling with this for quite a while to get this thing to hold steady. There you go. So doing that. It's hard to get really accurate measurements. I honestly, even though it's only 20 bucks, I find is about as painful as doing this. It's cheap, but this is cheaper. Next option. VISM. You have two side clamps that can move. Raise this as much as you want. This is much, much more easier to work with. Much easier to work with than the other one that I had mentioned. You can get much more precise measurements, and then you tighten it. Again, the sides are rubber, so you're really not really going to harm the gun there. Your main risk of harming the gun is the steel slide as this rotates. So again, I don't want to do it because I've already got the sights in. You push this down here also to hold the slide in place. It really holds it secure. And then you just start rotating this. You rotate this. I don't know if you can see it, but it's actually two separate wrenches, vices. So they move left, right, and you can put a lot of torque on it. This will undoubtedly work very well. It secures your pistol really well, puts it in a safe environment. You just have to put tape on the sides to protect your sights. It's heavy, holds good weight, really solidly made. Be careful as you push this down. You don't want to push too hard because it can scratch your firearm. So, probably put some tape there too. This will work well. You could put it in a vise if you wanted to secure it even more, but I've honestly done this on the table. Works with all sights. Very good. Only downside of this is you will be needing your calipers to do accurate measurements. Also, one other thing I forgot to mention on this real quick. Front, squared off. This one, while it's not curved, it does have a little tiny ridge here, so it allows you to put, if you have a sight that has a really tiny dovetail insert, you can use this back part to really get in there and wedge it out. Yeah, Wiregear. So this one is the $90 one. This is made in China. It's a Chinese product. The way you do this is you raise these, you unscrew these. This one has all the benefits of the one that I just showed you. It works really, really well. It has the same clamp I was showing you earlier is rubberized here. So you can use it for curved slides or flat slides. You can decide. Glock's square top, so I'll use the square side. It's also, here's the kicker. You see these measurements? This means you don't need the calipers. You just make sure you remember the measurements, and you can rotate this up, left, and right based on the measurements to make sure you put it in the right spot. You can also unscrew these two little hex screws and rotate this so you can do the same thing I was mentioning before, square or flat sights. So rotate this left, right. You use these to brace the pistol. So you put this in, mark it where you want to put it. Brace the pistol. I would recommend using tape for this because these are steel. They can mark the pistol. Then you basically put this on top. There you go. Tighten it. Again, you would tighten all of them. Now you got it secured, and then you just start rotating this, and it'll knock the sights right out. Really good product. Works really well. Very solid, robust, heavy. Just mark your measurements, and then you can come back later and put the sights and the replacement sights in the exact spot that you want. Works really, really well. So with that being said, what is the difference of the Wheeler? Not much. You're going to find the Wheeler is pretty much identical. They feel identical. The big differences, and I can tell you just from feeling them, the Wheeler one is better quality steel. It's a little more solid. The precision of this, the way you rotate this, is not as smooth. Watch. See? And then this, I rotate it once. You see that? Watch. Now watch with the Wheeler. Much, much smoother. You see that? See how it rotates? It's well oiled. It's much better built. It works, it functions the exact same, but I can tell you right now, this one, as you're working through it, you're gonna have to jimmy it a little bit, work with it a little bit. This one is very smooth. All the gears are oiled, everything is oiled. It's just the way it's put together and the measurements are, it's so smooth that it's really easy to work with and very hard to mess up. The only thing is, again, now this is about 150. You can get it anywhere from 120 to 150. This is 90 bucks. So if you're price conscious, this one. If you want to support an American company, get the Wheeler. It is a little bit nicer. Is it 60 bucks nicer? I don't know. That's going to be up to you. But I personally am keeping this one. The Wiregear is going back. I'm going to keep the Wheeler. I do want to support an American company. It just, look at this, the finish. If you see right there, see that finish? That scuffs really easy. That just came in the box like that. The paint scuffs easy. This one is, even though scratches are showing, it's keeping the body nice and neat. Again, is that worth the extra 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks at the time of sale? That's going to be up to you. Definitely feels more premium. If you want to go a little bit cheaper and you want to do more measurements, get the VISM. VISM works really well. If you really want to go cheap, just use one of these, nylon. I would not recommend using this. Don't recommend it. It's cheap, but it's going to give you headaches. So that's it. All of these work with pretty much every basic firearm. I've done them with Glocks, CZs, Berettas, 1911s, HKs. They work with all of them. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, reach out to me. And yeah, hopefully this was helpful. Have a good day.